So wonderful to be with you all tonight. Always a pleasure to get together in this way on Tuesday evenings. Let's just first settle in a bit. We'll just check in with the body first. We can just do a scan from head to toe, see if there's anything that we may be holding in tension that we don't need to be. You can also check in with the breath, make sure we're still breathing. Again, just allow the breath to be as it is. The body knows how to do it. We can allow it to just breathe naturally. So there's no need to breathe in any particular way, but we can just notice how the body is doing that. And we can just sense the flow of air through the nose into the lungs, the movement of the chest and belly with the breath. You can notice if there's any tension in the belly as you're breathing. If you can relax it, fine. If not, just let it be. It's fine. Okay, so as we're just sitting here, not much is happening, just breathing, sitting. We can notice that there may be some sensations that the body's experiencing. You can hear the sound of the voice. Maybe sense into the temperature of the room. Noticing whatever may appear in the visual field. Just perceptions of the body. Again, like the breath, we don't need to manage that in any way. We can just notice it. Just notice what is already present. We can also notice any movement in the mind that wants to tug us away from just this simple being present in this moment. Any thought of the past, any memory, any anticipation, any worry, any unresolved issue that seems to want to demand our attention in this moment. Any hope for some special experience. Whatever it is that may be trying to tug our mind in a certain direction, just notice it, just activity of the mind. And let it be. It's not necessary to try to make it go away. It's actually counterproductive to try to make it go away. Just note it. It's okay, no problem. And come back to just this simple sense of presence, being here, being alive in this moment. So as we notice the activity of the mind is similar to the other perceptions that we may have, perceptions of sight, of hearing, sensation on the skin, sensation of sitting in the chair, whatever sensations the body may have, none of those are a problem, right? Thought in exactly the same way is also not a problem. It's just what is appearing within the field of awareness. The awareness actually doesn't have a problem with thought. It's not diminished by the presence of thought. So we can just allow the thought to be there. And as we take note of these different perceptions, these different inputs, the different arisings within the field of consciousness, we can just step back more and more, just gently step back into the sense of the awareness itself. It's not distant, right? It is what is noticing these arisings, these perceptions, these thoughts. So just that awareness, just that simple presence without trying to make it different in any way. So again, any attempt by the mind to try to make it more than that, enhance it, improve it, change it, make it better, make it different. Just notice that tendency of the mind and let it be. And just come back again to the simple sense of presence, aliveness, here, in this moment. Just the recognition of that is sufficient. The mind may object to that simplicity. The mind likes activity, it likes something to do. And so we can take note of that also. And again, come back to just this sense of being. So every time we may get pulled away, our attention may be pulled away to some thought or feeling or sensation, and then we realize, okay, I can still come back to this sense of presence. Every time that happens is not a cause for self-punishment. It's actually the way we learn. The way we learn what is the constant is this awareness. So every time we return back to it, even though we may have been lost in our mind for 10 minutes, every time we come back to it is just another way we sort of undo a little bit of conditioning that's built up over probably decades, where the mind has been in charge, where we get used to hyper activity. So every time we come back is actually like a returning home. Every time we return home, we learn better where that is, what the sense of it is. So don't despair or regret or incriminate yourself when we get lost in thought. You know, we've been lost in thought a million times before, but just the returning back to that sense of awareness, oh, here I am, still present. That's the miracle. you know, being lost in thought, and something pulls us back into remembering what we actually are. That's the miracle. So we should be grateful rather than self-incriminating. So coming back to that often, and then we may get distracted, and then we come back. Beautiful. It's how we can see over time, the continuity of that awareness, the fact that it's actually never absent, the fact that it's always intimately present, even while we're lost in thought. So there's great value in just remembering when it happens, just to come back to that space, even for a few minutes, has great value, often, often. During the day, I mean, you don't have to be sitting, you don't have to be doing anything in particular, but coming back to that space is of great value. So simple. The mind doesn't like simple. So we can just be aware of that, realize that the mind will object, will find ways to try to undermine our attention. You know, some of the common ways it does it is sleepiness is one. Mind likes to check out if it doesn't like what's happening. Boredom is another way. You know, bringing up into present consciousness some issue that demands attention right now, even though it doesn't. Another technique. So we can just notice that. And come back to just this state of simple presence, simple awareness. Always available. Okay, good. Everybody here? So I thought what we could talk about tonight is spiritual ambition. So a few Tuesdays ago, we talked about intention. So I wanted to draw a distinction between intention, which is helpful, and spiritual ambition, which is not so helpful. So what do we mean by spiritual ambition? Well, you know, what I mean by that is it's not actually all that different from plain old ordinary ambition, you know, where we have a goal and we think we're pursuing that goal, and we're pursuing that goal only because there's a sense of it's not present here now, but you know, I want it, and therefore I am pursuing it. That's my ambition, is to I don't know, get promoted. So you know, the promotion isn't here now, but you know, if I work and try, I have a specific goal, and you know, there's a sense of lack now, but I know when I achieve that goal, then I'll be happy, right? So the payoff is in the future, the goal is in the future, and the imagined state that we'll feel when we reach that goal is, well, it's both imaginary and in the future. So that's how we normally, well, that's how ambition normally works, right? So the issue in spirituality is a little different because the ambition in spirituality is based on an idea of what I think this journey is about, some end goal to that journey. And if we're, very spiritually inclined, we might say that my goal is to get enlightened. Or if we were a little more modest than that, we might say, well, my goal is just to find a little peace of mind and, see if I can reduce the busyness of my mind a little bit. But in either case, it's basically to enhance my state of how I feel about myself. We have an imagined belief about what enlightenment is, and we have the belief that if I try real hard to pursue that, then I will be happy at some future time once I achieve my goal. So it's not here now. We deny its presence now, and we look for it as an imaginary object at some future time, right? Enlightenment, is not present now, obviously. So I'll go and look for it there and then. But the issue is we won't find it there and then because, well, it's always here and now, right? So any belief that we have that the imagined goal of our ambition is something that we'll discover in the future is faulty to begin with. Right? It's a denial of anything being present now, but our hope is pinned on the possibility of it somehow appearing or arising or us earning it at some later point. The difficulty is that like any other pursuit that we've had where we imagined some greater happiness through one pursuit or another, is that whenever we reach those kinds of goals, that wanting is sort of stands down for a limited period of time. We buy a new car, for first day, it's out in the driveway, we're proud of it. Hopefully the neighbors will see it. We like to drive it. Feels good, right? And a week later, it's still there, it's still a nice car, but it doesn't still have the same sense of pleasure that it was when we first drove it home. A year later, another car, right? 5 years later, we're looking for a replacement. If the car was what gave us pleasure, as long as we had the car, we should be happy, right? But we can see that whatever attainment that we seek, when that moment happens, it relieves our wanting for some period of time, and then that dissipates and we're left with wanting more. That house was nice, but now I think I want something better. So it's when we attain our desired goal, often we're left not long afterwards with a sense of wanting more. That was good. Yes, that's true. That was good, but and there's more. So in spirituality, that can take the form of, I've been, practicing for, let's say, quite a number of years, and I'm sure that what I'm seeking is out there. You know, I just haven't quite found it yet. But you know, I'm sure just the next teacher, the next book, the next meditation technique, the next spiritual experience, you know, the next. That will be it. That will be it. You know, yes, I've had some spiritual experiences. Yes, I've had some sense of just peace and relaxation, but they're temporary. You know, they come and then, you know, the next day or a couple of days later, I find myself back here. You know, so those states are temporary. So we can find that frustrating, and our solution to that is never to question the possibility of a permanent state, but to just believe that the resolution is, you know, a better experience, a more powerful spiritual experience, the big explosive, enlightening experiences that we've heard so much about. You know, so that becomes the goal, right? But the goal is still outside of ourself, somewhere distant. We have an idea of what that will look like. But the peculiar thing about enlightenment is that we can't possibly imagine what that is. You know, because and the reason for that is that the entity that we take ourselves to be actually isn't interested in it. It's interested in the idea of it, but it's not interested in the actuality of it. So what we commonly take ourselves to be is just this package of, you know, our body, mind, thoughts, beliefs, opinions, memories, hopes, dreams, fears, guilt, regrets, what ifs. That whole package is what we take ourselves to be. The challenging thing is, because we take ourselves to be that, that is the only vehicle that we have available to go searching for this concept that we call enlightenment. The problem is that our belief in the reality of that sort of tangled ball of twine of all of these beliefs and opinions and ideas about who we are is what needs to be seen through. The illusory nature of that whole package is what we wake up from. That package that we take ourselves to be doesn't improve itself more and more until it finally awakens, a new and improved version of itself. It's just not how it works. What we wake up from is the illusion of that entire package. So if that's what we take ourselves to be, sort of this tangled ball of twine of ideas and thoughts and beliefs about who we are, that's what we take in search of enlightenment. So everything that we look for is seen from that perspective. So the idea of enlightenment is just another idea within this sphere of thoughts and opinions and beliefs, etc. It's just another belief about what that will look like, what it'll look like, and I'll be happy when I get there. I know I will, and it will look like that. It will look like eternal bliss. That's what I've read, and I have an imagination about what that will be, just blissed out forever and ever. So we have this idea about some future event and what it will look like, but we're looking at it from the perspective of this package that we take ourselves to be. So any any opinion or idea or belief that originates from within this package is wholly within that package. And the whole effort of this journey is to see the illusory nature of the package itself. So that's why I say the personal self really doesn't have an interest in this enlightenment game. Likes the idea of it, likes to be on the journey, likes to see itself as a spiritual person, working our way towards some future realization. But what it doesn't like is anytime it gets close to realizing that this package is frail, right? It's vulnerable. It's vulnerable to what? Vulnerable to us looking too closely at it. As long as we're looking outside, from this package, from this sort of tangled ball of twine that we take ourselves to be, as long as we're looking outside of it, like enlightenment is, someday, when I put in enough hours of meditation, as long as it's held as an idea within that package, everything's still intact. We may feel like we're on the spiritual journey, but that belief of where we are and where we're going and how far we've come and comparing ourselves to others, etc., is all wholly within this thought and belief package. Okay, we're still looking, imagining what may be outside of it, but not really looking at the fundamental nature of this package itself. By looking at the fundamental nature of it, I mean to really look at, well, who's having this experience right now? What is that? Where does this thought arise from? What am I if thought is absent in this moment? What am I without my storyline? These are questions that aren't imagining some future event. They're really looking directly at what we can look at, what we have the power to look at. Anything beyond this package is imaginary, right? Because we have sort of a flawed instrument to work with. We have a few senses where we can sense into the world. We have this, brain that can think. We have our memories colored by our conditioning. And that's the tool that we've got to work with. So we can, it's useful to have some caution around how certain we are about our beliefs. If we really see that, what I've got to work with here is limited. I'm seeing things through my own conditioning. I'm perceiving things from my own set of experiences, from my own particular location, culturally or economically or racially or in the world. And, so, whatever conclusions I may draw, I just need to dial down the level of certainty a bit there. And by doing that, it actually opens us to looking at things in a more open-hearted way. So from the perspective of this separate self that I've been describing, the separate self through its own efforts, like by its own bootstraps, can't eliminate itself. I mean, that's why this whole concept of, you know, getting rid of my ego is, you know, it's a false goal. Because there's, first of all, there's nothing within us that wants to get rid of ego, because everything that we take ourselves to be is firmly committed to the sense of personal self. It's not real, but it feels real. It feels real because it's been imbued with our belief in its reality. You know, we take it for being what we are, separate self, separate from the rest of the world. And we've been taught to do that. You know, we look around, everybody's been taught to do that. Almost to question it makes a person subject to being looked at funny, right? So from this perspective of this separate self, where we're looking to try to find a resolution, you know, to sort of this sense of separation from the world, from within that construct, from within that package, there's no apparent way out. You know, for a while it might seem like, well, meditation's helping. I am feeling more peaceful. That's great. Or, you know, we, you know, come up with a new theology or philosophy about life or the world. Oh, that makes sense. That's great. And that can be helpful. And there's not a problem with that. But if we're looking to actually free ourselves from this fundamental state of disunity, separation from everything else, we need something more than just a philosophy. You know, we need more than, you know, just an idea about how everything works and get it straight in our head. You know, that might be helpful, it might be enough for some people. But if we really want to see through this situation in its entirety, something more is called for. You know, so this this package, any escape from within this package of thoughts, beliefs, opinions, who I am, etc., any attempt to improve our way out of that is furthering it. It's reinforcing it. It's counterproductive to seeing through it because we've invested our belief in the reality of it. You know, this thinking belief package is what I am. I just need to have better thoughts, better philosophy, better you know, construct about how I think the world all works. You know, if I get that all straight, then everything will be good. But you can see that that's wholly within this package of what we commonly take ourselves to be. So what's the alternative then? If to struggle against that package only reinforces it because, you know, we give it the reality to the extent that we have to struggle against it, right? I'm just going to get rid of it. You know, that's not going to work. Why would you want to get rid of it? Why would you want to get rid of your ego? I mean, the only thing that would want to get rid of the ego is that within us that wants to improve ourselves, right? Wants to make it better for myself. Right? So it's just more wanting. You know, we put a spiritual glaze on it so we feel better about it, but it's still ambition, right? I want something better for me, and I've heard that's what enlightenment is. So That's what I want. So it's sort of this grasping after. So the grasping after is wholly in service to this sense of what we commonly take ourselves to be. I mean, can you feel into that? That sort of, wanting something, and what do we want it for? And the idea of, eternal bliss is, I mean, who can deny that, right? Eternal bliss. Nisargadatta, Indian mystic from the last century, who incidentally, I was on retreat with Eckhart Tolle one time, and this was some years ago, and someone asked him, did he have any book, well, other than his own, any book that he would recommend? And the only name that he could come up with was Nisargadatta. So anyway, the quote from Nisargadatta is that we're speaking about perpetual bliss and the desire for it. And the quote is, man's desire for a woman is innocence itself compared to the lust for perpetual bliss, right? The lusting after something, I want that for me. Fairly harsh statement, but you get the sense of it, right? So we can see with this idea of grasping after enlightenment, it's goal-oriented. It has to do with the future. It has to do with an imaginary state of mind when we get there. That's sort of the characteristics of what we mean by spiritual ambition. Okay, so is there something else, right? So this is, a couple of weeks ago, we talked about intention. Intention is different. Intention isn't the same as what we've been talking about, the spiritual ambition. Intention is sort of setting our intention, setting a course. We're not in that same way. It's not goal-oriented. It's not imagining how great something will be in the future sometime. It's really seeing that what is needed in this moment, the next thing that is possible to look at, that I have energy to look at, is, let's say, a deep investigation of, I don't know, how thoughts arise, how we believe our thoughts, the power of a believed thought. Those kind of questions. We're still operating within this ball of twine, but rather than looking outside of it, we're investigating the nature of it, right? Because the entire construct, it is illusory. To take that as a concept doesn't help, but to take that as a suggested course of investigation is helpful. Well, if it's an illusory, how does it operate? The illusion is possible to be dissolved if it's seen clearly enough. We can't dissolve it, but we can look at it more and more closely. So it becomes less and less the ruler of our lives and more the object of our investigation. So instead of looking at imaginary things beyond our sphere, you could say, we're investigating ourselves. We're the guinea pig. We're looking at ourselves in detail to really get to the bottom of how this operates. So this is really, turning around, coming back to look, within the sphere of exactly how that works. That's useful, right? And it's useful if we're doing it without a goal in mind, where we're not doing it in order to prove something, we're doing it to find out something. So it's open-ended in that way. It's like a good scientist. You do an experiment and you're curious, did my assumption about how this works, did it turn out to be true or not? Either way, you learn something, And then there's some other scientists that maybe are motivated by a larger paycheck that are design their experiments in order to come up with a conclusion that is to the benefit of the person writing the paycheck. I mean, that's a different methodology than just being open to looking honestly for oneself, right? So what we're talking about here in terms of intention is that we're not looking at imaginary things beyond our ability to look. We're investigating what we do have the capacity to look at, namely ourselves, right? Rather than saying, well, if the world was only like this or that, then I could be happy, or, if this happened in my future, then I'll be happy. What we do have control over is our ability to investigate how this organism, with all its conditioning, actually works. We don't not only have the power to do that, that is what begins to open the doorway. Just that willingness to look deeply into ourselves, look without self-judgment. Without self-judgment is really the key. If we're judging ourselves, then we're still struggling. We're still trying to improve ourselves. We're still refusing to look with clear eyes. We still, are trying to manage things rather than really look at things. So we have to be willing to look with honesty, to follow that thread wherever it leads, not knowing where it will lead. We have to be a bit courageous too, not back away from looking anywhere that journey takes us. We have to be authentic, right? We have to be dedicated to it. It's not a, once a week on Sunday activity. It really needs to be a substantial part of our life if we want to really see through this. But that's the doorway, to actually look with intention to see what's actually true, not in any kind of imaginary way. We're not conjuring up any new ideas. We're not adopting any belief systems. All we're doing is suggesting an avenue to look rather than out there beyond our sphere of what we take ourselves to be, but look within that deeply, honestly. And we need to look at it on its terms, not our terms, right? By that, I mean to follow it wherever it may take us, without trying to manage that journey with our mental concepts about where it is going. Because the truth is, we don't know where it's going. We can't know where it's going. This package of tangled ball of twine can't know what is beyond itself. the reason for that is the awakeness is what wakes up from this belief in the reality of our thoughts and beliefs and opinions, etc. Okay, so we wake up from that. That doesn't wake up in itself. So as we take this more and more deeply, just sense into that, that deeper longing. You may not even know what that longing is for. It's almost better not to know, but just to let that longing sort of show itself in our dedication, our faith, our trust in our own integrity, and to follow that, to really trust that journey. If we do it with, sincerity, curiosity, willingness, honesty, that if we take that journey, it will lead us home. Okay, that has power. That moving from that deeper longing for something that we don't understand, can't understand, has much more power, much more valuable than sort of grasping after some concept we might have, some future event that we might call enlightenment. Okay, because what will be revealed will not be a concept. What will be revealed will not be in the future. It can't be. Right? That recognition of what we already are can only happen in the present moment. If not this present moment, this present moment, right? It won't happen in the future. It won't happen as a concept. So what is there to be realized is that what we are, we always have been. Everybody already is that. Most people aren't aware of that simply because their attention is outward. From this sphere, looking outward for the resolution. But it's out there somewhere. I know it is. I may not have seen it yet, but I know it's out there somewhere. And therefore we miss what is already present here. If we see it here, then we can see it everywhere. If we look for it everywhere, there's too much going on out there. It's really difficult to see it out there first. If it's seen here, then it can be recognized everywhere. But to try to find it out there in the next experience, the next philosophy, the next concept, the next experience, the idea that it's somehow outside of ourselves and not here is the barrier. Is the barrier. It'll never be found out there. And it will also never be found here in what we commonly take ourselves to be. That is, it feels like it's here, but it's actually also outside. What's is inside, our innermost nature, our most intimate self, is not a separate entity. It is the awareness that we pointed to at the beginning. Formless, eternal, present. But that fully reveals itself when we sort of demonstrate to the universe that we're committed enough on this investigation about who we really are to really look sincerely at what we've mistakenly taken ourselves to be. So this whole concept of ego death sounds frightening, but what actually drops away isn't the reality of us. What drops away is a mistaken identity. That's it. It may, as when we go through it, it may feel somewhat more threatening than that, but that's what it is. It's a mistaken identity that drops away. Drops away because we see that it's not actually true, that our true nature is something deeper, something that isn't subject to impermanence. Everything else is, except our true nature, except the awareness that we are is not subject to impermanence. So that's the journey. We've tried to compare spiritual ambition, the grasping at some future imaginary, hopefully powerful event, versus our intention to look deeply, from the place of our deepest longing. So the suggestion is to keep the longing, let the ambition go.